Hey drumheads, little drummer boy here, and this evening I want to talk about. I made a prediction that came true, and now I don't have it on YouTube. I'm not sure if I have my YouTube channel at the time, but for those of you who are on my Facebook, James L. Little, you will know that when Governor Cuomo in New York, when the New York legislature passed a law allowing the abortion of babies up to the moment of birth. We're talking about full-grown babies. I don't care where you're at on the whole choice thing, but we're talking about full-grown babies at the moment of birth. When the legislature of New York passed that into law and Cuomo signed it into law. Now, let's look at Roe versus Wade. Roe versus Wade, first of all, it wasn't passed by, how do we pass laws in America? We pass laws through the Congress, and then the president signs them into law. And the Supreme Court judges the constitutionality of them. But that's not what happened with Roe versus Wade. Congress never voted on it. The people's representatives never voted on it. 9 non-elected judges did. And that's not constitutional. They can't make law. The President Nixon, did not sign it into law. Roe versus Wade is bunk. It's not even real law yet. 60 million babies have been killed. But anyway, even if you agree with Roe versus Wade, even if you don't understand the scientific fact that life begins at conception, or the theological fact that God said he knew us before he conceived us in our mother's womb. Even if you don't understand these things, and even if you believe in Roe versus Wade, and they didn't have the technology now, the ultrasounds and sonograms where you can see the baby moving around and count its fingers and stuff. So people were kind of ignorant back then and just thought it was like a blob of cells or something. But Roe versus Wade only allowed abortion up until the time the baby is viable outside the womb. And Russia's like, well, when is that? Because if the mother doesn't feed the baby and take care of it, it's going to die anyway. So really, when is it viable outside the womb? When can a baby live outside the womb on its own? That's kind of hard to explain, huh? But anyway, basically, Roe versus Wade didn't allow for abortion after the time that a baby could survive and live. Could be born and live. So, but now New York has gone way past that and allowed babies to be aborted up to birth. And, they feel pain at like 22 weeks or something like that. That's why Republicans have tried to get laws passed where you can't abort a baby after it feels pain. So they're just poisoning these children with saline solution and crushing their skulls with forceps and sucking them through a tube with no anesthesia. Let that sink in. These babies can feel pain just as much as you can. There's a movie called The Silent Scream about baby, and in the movie Unplanned about former Planned Parenthood director Abby. I can't remember her last name right now. But anyway, she got out once she saw the baby trying to get away. She had to help with the ultrasound abortion. She saw the baby trying to get away from the suction machine, and then it was just gone. And the doctor said, the hitman, not the doctor. They're not doctors. Doctors take a vow to not procure abortion and to do no harm. The hitman said, "Beam me up, Scotty," after he ripped that little baby from its mother. But anyway, so when and here's the real kicker. They lit the Freedom Tower at 9/11, Ground Zero. They lit the Freedom Tower pink to celebrate this horrific Hitlerian law that they passed. Hitler's never done anything worse than that, So Cuomo and he said God didn't have anything to do with the slowing down of virus cases in New York too. He's going to have a rude awakening unless he repents. But anyway, so will anybody else. So when they lit that Freedom Tower pink, When They Lit It Pink. And read Jonathan Cahn's book, The Harbinger. It will blow your mind. It's the most jaw-dropping book I've ever seen. He talks about in there, he's a rabbi turned pastor, so he knows the Old Testament inside out. He said that when a country's been judged, well, America and Israel are the only two nations to be dedicated to God from the start. Israel was dedicated to God at the temple in Jerusalem, and America was dedicated to God at a little Episcopal church in New York City, where President Washington and a joint session of Congress went in 1790. New York was the capital then. They went in and prayed and dedicated America to God. Take that, people that believe in separation of church and state. So yeah, here's the mind-blowing part. Jonathan Cahn says that when a country's been judged, the judgment comes back to the ground of consecration, where the country was dedicated to God at. Well, in Israel, the temple was sacked, I think, by the Babylonians or the Assyrians. I forget which. I know the Babylonians took Israel into captivity for 70 years, but I can't remember if it was them or the Babylonians that sacked the temple. But anyway, so the judgment came right back to the ground of consecration. Well, also in New York, guess what was on the original property of that Episcopal church? The Twin Towers were there, ground zero. Judgment came right back to the ground of consecration. A hemlock tree, which that was prophetic too. Read the book, The Harbinger by Jonathan Cahn. A hemlock tree was knocked down by the blast and spared that ancient Episcopal church. It was like the only thing from ground zero that survived was that Episcopal church where our nation was prayed in, dedicated to God. And so people went there and prayed after 9/11 in the wake of it all. So, okay, so that sets some historical context for the grounds of 9/11 and the Freedom Tower. So after 3,000 Americans are killed there, Cuomo celebrates killing 3,000 Americans every day in abortion clinics and up to the time of birth by lighting up the friggin' Freedom Tower pink. And I said then, because I mean, the Bible says God is not mocked. And that's like, they gave God the middle finger. That is like a slap in the face. And so I said then on Facebook that 9/11 is nothing compared to what God is going to do to New York. And y'all, God ain't playing. The last I heard, there's about 4,000 more corona deaths than 9/11 deaths in New York. So I just knew, because I mean, I'm like, I'm not bragging on myself, but I knew, if you know the Bible, I knew, I'm like, God's not going to let that stand. He is not going to let them defy him like that and defy his commandment not to kill. And Jesus said about the situation, and think about this, pro-choice voters. Jesus said, "Let the little children come unto me, for such as these is the kingdom of heaven. For any who offend such as these, it would be better for them to have a millstone tied around their necks and be cast into the midst of the sea." Y'all think God is playing about abortion? You think he's playing about people hurting children? Child abuse, sexual abuse, sex slavery? You think he's playing games? You think it's just tissue? You think it doesn't matter to God? I am sure, I believe with all my heart, because I was dead on, spot on with it, that the coronavirus hit New York so hard. I know it's our most populous city. I used to drive through it twice a week trucking. Thank God I'm not now. But I think the reason it's hitting New York so hard because, and it's hitting the city too, because the rest of New York State is Republican, but the city, just like in Illinois with Chicago and the cities in LA and San Diego and San Francisco, California is a red state except for the coast, except for the big cities. So it's appropriate that the judgment is coming right back to first of all, to the ground where America was consecrated to God, but also to New York City, because New York City controls the votes in Albany. That, you know, that bill passed because of people in New York City who voted for those legislators. Cuomo is the governor because New York City has the votes in New York. The rest of the state's a red state. But anyway, thank God for the Electoral College, because that is the only reason why New York and LA and Chicago don't pick our presidents, and we'd be in real bad shape or not even here anymore if they did as a country. Anyway, just something to think about. And I have a friend, he's a new Christian, or he's kind of like a seeker. I'm not sure if he's really committed yet or not, but he just thinks it's absurd. I'm like, you need to, he doesn't think that God would do that. And I'm like, excuse me, y'all. I'm like, God is a God of love and mercy, yes. But if you're unrepentant and you defy his law and his words, he is also a God of justice. And he will bring justice on a nation to return them to him. Israel, in the Old Testament, that's what I told him. I said, you need to study Israel in the Old Testament. Every time they were blessed of God, they would turn away from God and forget him, and you know, like we got our money now. We don't need God. We got our money, our military might. America, same thing, man. And every time Israel would turn away from God, God would let a catastrophe happen to them, and they would then they would repent, you know, and come back to God. So he doesn't do it just to be vindictive. He does it to get our attention. Yes, some people have to die when he brings judgment, but he gets it to get a nation's attention. And in 2 Chronicles 7:14, let's see if I can quote this right. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways and seek my face, then will I hear from heaven and heal their land. Something to that effect. I would never misquote the Bible purposely, because, you know, the Bible in the Revelation, it says your name will be blotted out of the Lamb's Book of Life for that. So if I butchered that verse, please forgive me, Lord. You know, I was trying to remember it off the top of my head. And anyway, I hope y'all have a blessed day. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell icon so you can be notified when I upload new material. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye.